You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Glad to be here tonight. Glad to have some of you here with me tonight already. Much appreciation for you guys who tune in either live or who come through in the playbacks and listen to the playback. It's always appreciated. It makes me feel like it's worth the while doing, you know? Just want to remind you guys, this show is a part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows you should be tuned into, for example.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Also check out the Queen's Council Podcast, also on KWAZ Radio. I don't usually do this. I usually forget about it. You can donate to the show. We have Cash App, $BitterMeds, BITTERMEDZ. If you're looking at your screen on your computer, you could see the scroll by $BITTERMEDZ or Z. So we're shooting the breeze tonight, and that means, and I might turn this into a regular Saturday segment, you know, to kind of change it up, you know, every couple of days, change things up. So if this goes well, I'll continue to do the Saturday night shoot the breeze episode, right, where you guys come in. You could come in the chat room a little bit earlier. You could post the topic that you'd like us to discuss. Sometimes I'm not gonna know every topic, but you guys can teach me something, and through our interaction, we can teach someone else who's listening. So I see, as I'm scrolling through some of the comments that I hear, I see the Pro-Black Perspective is here, and the Pro-Black Perspective wants to know, you know, give us quarantine dating advice. And of course, he's asking for a friend. My advice is wear 2 masks. That's it. Wear 2 masks, fellas. Continue with what you've been doing already. But seriously, thank you guys who are here. I see Daily Affirmations by Pauline says good evening. Good evening to her. Y'all check out her channel as well. NYC Beauties, check out that channel. NYC Beauties is here. NYC Sports Archives is here. The Pro-Black Perspective, as I mentioned, for a friend, he's here. Dorico Cooper Photography is here. So it's a pretty good turnout. Kevin Care 42, as always. Pretty good turnout in the chat room. And I see that the first topic is magnetic pole shift. Magnetic pole shift. And the Pro-Black Perspective says to that, damn. I say the same. Pro-Black Perspective says, just when I was about to type that. Absolutely. I already dealt with the quarantine dating advice, and everyone else is just saying good evening. So let's look up quarantine. Oh, sorry, quarantine. Let's look up magnetic pole shift. First thing that comes up, a stripper. No, I'm kidding. Let's look up. So I'm gonna go just to the first link. First link says a magnetic field reversal 42,000 years ago may have contributed to mass extinction. The weakening of Earth's magnetic field correlates with a cascade of environmental crises. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of this article, and then I'll hit up Rico Cooper for his thoughts on it as well. So it says a flip-flop of Earth's magnetic poles between 42,000 and 41,000 years ago briefly but dramatically shrank the magnetic field strength and may have triggered a cascade of environmental crises on Earth. A new study suggests, with the help of new precise carbon dating obtained from ancient tree fossils, the researchers correlated shifts in climate patterns, large mammal extinctions, and even changes in human behavior just before and during the last Champs excursion, a brief reversal of the magnetic poles that lasted less than 1,000 years. It's the first study to directly link a magnetic pole reversal to large-scale environmental changes. The team reports in the February 19th article Science. So I guess what Rico Cooper was getting at in another comment he had lower, saying that we all resonate at the same frequency, I think was his. Yeah, we are on the same frequency was his comment. So I guess the idea of putting those things together, which I do believe different people operate on different frequencies. I do believe that personally. I do believe that we probably, and I do believe that we resonate with people based on their energies, but so I guess the idea is that with this magnetic field changing and us as living things operate at a certain frequency or a certain range of frequencies. I guess the idea here is that when the magnetic pole, when something changed with it, when it reversed, I guess, it caused these large-scale environmental changes. I guess the question I'll ask Rico is, does that mean, is this something that, because this was 41 to 42,000 years ago, is this something that we're worried about now? Have we become too comfortable with the idea that this change occurred and this cascade of events happened because of it? What say you? In the chat room, Daily Affirmations by Pauline says strippers, LOL. Jericho says Planet 7X. Planet 7X. By the way, too, if you guys who are in the chat room, if you're also on the Discord, you can jump on tonight on the live. All right, I'm cool with that tonight. If you guys want to jump on the live and discuss the topic that you bring up, I'm cool with that. So you guys let me know. But Dorico, if you can just briefly in the chat room talk about why you think we should be concerned about it. And by we, are we talking the whole human race, the black part? Like what do we mean exactly by we? Right? Because oftentimes, I'll be honest with you, I just kind of think of things as far as our people are concerned. But I'm curious to know, what you mean. Is it the same as me or different? Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I have some things set up here that we'll be okay with. going forward, if people choose to jump on, right? Derico Cooper Photography says Gil Broussard, Chris Wakefield Thomas, Nancy Leader seem to be the experts on the subject. Okay. Well, I don't want to do a whole gang of research while talking to you guys here. I don't like the quiet space. So in the meantime, while we're trying to get through to what that story means and should mean to us, let's see what else, if anyone else has put anything up. I already discussed the quarantine dating advice, right? Wear 2 masks. So anyone else dropping a topic? So I see on the Discord, Kevin Kerr tends to talk about this a lot, but I see there's more incidences of Asians getting their ass beat out here, and when you look at who's doing it, it's a bunch of white guys beating them up, right? And sometimes it's fellow Asian dudes beating them up too, right? So what are you guys noticing in your neck of the woods when it comes to the Asian situation that we have going on, right? Derico Cooper says we tend to experience 8 to 10 hour far share of everything that's negative. We tend to experience 8 to 10 hours, I guess. I guess of negative energy. He says climate change is real, but they lie about the causality. Here's the thing about the climate change thing, and I've talked about this before. Like, if the Earth was to face some kind of destruction, like some kind of crisis level event, the issue is Black folks, because we're not really, I mean, frankly speaking, we're not doing anything, right? This pandemic kind of proves that. Like, where was the Black, African-centered research facility, like Pfizer is and Johnson & Johnson is? Where was the research for us when it seemed like we were being harmed by this virus the most? Where were our people producing vaccines? And so that same problem that we saw during this period is the same problem we will see if there was like a extinction level event coming up where millions of folks would die across the globe. I mean, hundreds of millions, right, will die across the globe. What are we doing to be able to be prepared for something like that? There's a reason why these guys are talking about putting folks on Mars. And by the way, they have machines on Mars creating oxygen and all kind of stuff. So there's a reason why they're doing all this stuff. There's a reason why they scan the stars to find other bodies out there that glow, so to speak, like Earth does. But y'all ain't hearing me though. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just telling you. These folks aren't waiting for the disaster to hit and just take the L. When these folks are blasting off into spaceships, what would our folks be doing? Derico Cooper Photography says Urugu has been to war with almost 180 different countries on this earth. They are at war with everything, including themselves. Like someone pointed out on social media a little while back, man, like we like black folks especially tend to clown these white folks for not being able to dance. And this person said something, yeah, y'all could clown them for not being able to dance and stuff, but they damn sure know how to war. NASA, like I talked about NASA the other day on space exploration. NASA ain't only about just going up in space and you know, sending some shit to Mars and stuff like that. There's a whole weapons part to NASA as well. They've detonated bombs on the moon and all kind of shit. Stuff I don't think an African would even think about. These guys have blown shit up on the moon already. Right? Where are we? Right? We're just clowning. Rigo Cooper Photography says Madagascar was producing a remedy for COVID-19. As that, you know, that's true. That is somewhat true. If I remember correct, it was a tonic, right? It was a tonic that Madagascar was making, like a herbal remedy, and it was prevented from being exported or something like that, right? But again, that's one instance, right? That's one instance, right? I'm talking generally speaking, like, you know, teams of folks across the globe, not just only in the continent, but wherever there's black folks, right? Actively finding these solutions to problems that particularly affect us, right? Diego Cooper Photography says there are like 40 Earth-like planets that they are not telling us about. Well, yeah, and you know what's funny about that? Because I just kind of alluded to that. For years now, they have been finding 10x Earths and stuff like that. Like it's an Earth basically, but it's like 10 times the size. And they know exactly how far these places are. What do you think they're doing? You think they're just writing down a bunch of numbers? Well, what do you think they're thinking about? Like the pro-black perspective said, white folks know how to protect themselves. These guys probably have all, like, for example, I was listening to the pro-black perspectives episode earlier today, and they were talking. They mentioned a few times Bill Gates. You know, Bill Gates has a massive seed bank somewhere like in the Antarctic or something like that. Do you know he has a massive? What do you think these guys are doing that stuff for? When your white co-worker says, "Oh, 4th of July weekend is coming up. We're heading out to Vermont or Montana or some shit," right? Where as soon as you land in some of these places, it's a forest. And these guys are going to these places. These guys are going to these places to camp, to survive on their own, in the wild and stuff like, and you know, what are we doing? I see we got some tongue-in-cheek comments in the chat room. Rigo Cool Photography says they have a weapon system in space. How do you think those fires got started in California? Pro-black perspective says George Zimmerman still signing Skittles buyers. Yeah, I mean, all that is a part of our problem, you know, and that's why I'm hell on folks who like to glorify the streets. The streets don't do nothing for us. They don't do nothing for us, you know. If the streets were anything, you think George Zimmerman and the folks who defended them, you think they would last more than 2-3 days after that trial? Come on. Regal Cooper Photography says they cure is an alkaline body. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the whole idea behind Sebi, Dr. Sebi, and Laela Africa. Keep the body alkaline, keep the body oxygenated. For example, cancer cells don't do well in a high oxygen environment. You know, keep the body oxygenated. You know, and that tends to work in our favor when it comes to disease of any kind. Pro-Black Perspective, here's the tongue-in-cheek comment. They don't want to tell us where the planets are because they don't want us to visit. Well, boo to that. I mean, the fact is, you know, they could tell us if they wanted to, but the problem is, if you tell us and then we start thinking, right? Just because you have a people kind of dumbed down and muted, like, you know, that doesn't mean you're gonna still flaunt, right? You're gonna flaunt your knowledge in front of them. You know, that's what the story is like in Jim Crow era. Those shoe shine boys and men who's to shine these white boys' shoes, and these white boys will be sitting down talking about the stock market, and stock tips and all this kind of stuff, and these guys would go, or even they'll be talking about horse racing or whatever, and these black guys will listen to what was being said and go and put their their money, right, where it's going to make more money based on what these guys were talking about. So, I mean, there's a reason why why it's smart of them not to even talk about it. Because some youth here and some youth there, black youth, are going to decide to study, you know, that science, right, where they can scan the stars, or they're going to become the citizen science, similar to what Elon Musk and others, I talked about this last episode, where these guys are outside right now firing DIY rockets damn near into space, right? If enough black folks over time start to hit us, we'll have more than one and more than two and three, and, you know, a few people here and there who's going to start wanting to follow and understand this science, understand what these planets are and where they are and how far, what it takes to get there and all that kind of stuff. But I get the tongue-in-cheek humor. Right now we ain't got shit to do with it, right? Black Excellence says the problem with our people is that we wait for outsiders to do things for us. A lot of us needs to get out of this childlike mentality. I've talked about it in the past. Folks didn't like it, but, you know, for the most part, the black community operates like children, and that's just what it is, right? You think, like I've talked about this in the show before, you think when these white folks build their rocket ships and start to head up out of here, when this thing, when the oxygen in this planet ignites, you think they're going to, just out the kindness of their heart, after all the hard work they did, their forefathers did, to get them to this place where they could jump on a rocket and get the hell up out of here and go to one of these 40 Earth-like planets out there? You think they're gonna just reach a hand over and say, hey, come in, eat some of our food, sleep in our, take up some of our space? You better be on it. KW7 says, I wouldn't consider Madagascar an African country based on its leadership. The president looks Asian. I'll be honest, I didn't know that. You know, I'll be real honest, I did not know that. The Real Cooper Photography says hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy is also a way to bring about health. Yeah, isn't that, you know, the first time I heard about this, it was in the National Enquirer back in like 85, And they were talking about Michael Jackson used to sleep in a hyperbaric chamber, right? And people called him, what they call him again? Wacko Jacko? No. LeBron James right now, this is what he does. If you're a basketball head, you know LeBron James does this hyperbaric chamber oxygen therapy stuff, and he feels like it's what keeps him, you know, in peak shape, even though he's injured right now, right? Dorigo Cooper says being a healthcare professional is a requirement to be a CHT. What's CHT exactly? Black Excellence says to KW Don 7's comment, back a few hundred years ago, the Malaysians came over to Madagascar and just bred out the Africans. See, you see that statement that Black Excellence made? That's why I don't like this statement that we get caught up in, and I think it's the hidden colors effect, where we say, you know, we talk about this genetic survival and all this old stuff. There's instances where these folks were able to breed us out, man. You go South America and stuff like that. They were like what's it, Paraguay, one of those places, right? They was able to breed out the black that was there, right? Dorigo Cooper says a pandemic. KW Don 7 says, though I respect their efforts in developing a solution to the COVID problem. Yeah, you have to give them respect for that. Dorigo Cooper says, a pandemic, the lockdowns are about killing small businesses. Well, I'll say this. Perhaps it is a pandemic. I don't put anything past these folks. I surely don't, right? But what I do know is that if a pandemic occurs, there's folks who are sitting at the ready, right, with a plan to make money off the opportunity. If you remember early on in the pandemic, they caught this white boy. He had bought up like all the hand sanitizer and shit in his immediate area. And he's not like in New York, so he's in a place where, you know, you jump on a highway, 100 miles is still your area, right? He went all about, bought up everything, right? And they reported it because he was selling it like 7 times the price and all that kind of stuff. They reported it, and I know he got clowned for it, but I don't remember if anything else happened to him. But the idea is that whenever there's a problem, there's somebody who's going to find a way to use it to their advantage. And I gotta say that there's something to the idea of it killing small businesses. Because when I looked at the PPP loan in the beginning, in the first round, the companies that were getting that PPP money were big companies, big restaurant chains and all that kind of stuff. And they were straight up saying, look, what's the word? They were saying, look, yeah, we got the money. We don't necessarily need the money, but we're not returning it. And those guys use some type of morality to excuse that behavior of keeping the money even though they don't necessarily really need it. Because again, if I'm not mistaken, the PPP loan is like whatever you borrow, you have to pay back like 1% or 2% or something like that. You know? Maybe 1% or 2% on top of the principal balance, but even that's nothing. Right? Because what you're going to be able to do with that lump sum of money from the loan, you know, is enough to really propel you forward. Right? Black Excellence says, with the way things are going, black folks are not going to have any choice but to work with each other. And that'll be a great thing. It's work together or die. And I feel you on that. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I will say though that if you have the habit of only being able to work together when, you know, just before the tragedy is about to strike, that's problematic too. You know, that's problematic too. If we know, if we're in an area together and we know that this huge army is coming through our you know, through where we are, we know that the army will be here in 7 days. It don't make sense waiting until day 6 to start working together. And that's what black folks gotta really work on now. We gotta start working together before the heat, before you can start feeling the warmth of the heat that's bearing down on us. Real Cooper Photography says billionaires are up 20%, some 50%. Yeah, billionaires, because like one of the things with the pandemic, which is so crazy, right? There's a meme out here right now showing you how, like, at the airport they got people standing 6 feet apart, only to go sit in a jammed up plane with a mask on. It just doesn't make sense. So the things that needed money to function were allowed to continue. Remember, they were talking about the airlines, you know, might you know, maybe needing a bailout early on in the pandemic, but they allowed them to reach a point where they could still fly with a certain percent capacity, with a bullshit 6 feet apart or whatever thing going on, you know. But the big guys, the airlines, the department stores, that type of thing, you know, like Target has been open the whole time. Walmart was open the whole time, which is wild to me. McDonald's was open the whole time, right? But meanwhile, the Trinidadian food place by me had to be closed at one time, like around 7 or 8 o'clock or something like that, you know. So Black Excellence says that knowledge the Mzungus passed down is generational and ever-changing. Tariqa Cooper Photography says it is so expensive and most insurance companies won't cover it. And then he explains what a CHT is, Certified Hyperbaric Chamber Technician. I figured it was something along those lines, but I think the chamber not being in the initials kind of threw me off. M Chaka is here. M Chaka 97 is in the room. Welcome, M Chaka. I haven't seen you in a little minute. M Chaka says it's not a plandemic. M Chaka said it's not a plandemic. M Chaka, I'd like you to talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about it. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I remember the hand sanitizer guy. Black Excellence says it was Argentina. I think you're right. It was Argentina. It was genius. They sent the black men to fight against the Indians. At that same time, there was a yellow fever outbreak. The war had high casualties on the black and Indian sides, right? Tariqa Cooper Photography says you have to be a MD, ND, DO, RN, EMT, or a paramedic before you can take the CHT course. Another way is to become a commercial diver. Oh yeah, because wow, I didn't think about that. Right? They often, to do those deep dives, they're in they can go down in hyperbaric chambers, right? So I guess what Dorico is trying to show you guys is I guess he's trying to show you guys how important this therapy is that he's talking about, right? How it's so important to oxygenate or keep the body, the internal environment of the body alkaline to fight against disease and stuff like that. And it's so important, so much so that your insurance company won't cover it, right? It's so, I guess, select that it's difficult, from what I'm understanding here, to even become a technician, right? To do the work. Like, you have to go all the way through med school, through nursing school or EMT or whatever, right? To be able to come in. So, you know, when you see that kind of thing going on, you know, they give you that high barrier to entry. That's when you know there's something good behind it. That's when you know that suggests to you, pay attention, right? Black Excellence says, war on yellow fever. The women on both sides were left alone. They had to marry and breed with the white man. End of both races. Dorico Cooper Photography is responding to M. Chaka. He says, do you really think COVID-19? Oh, I just lost it. Hold on. It scrolled up on me. Let me go back. Do you really think COVID-19 was not planned? Chaka says it's pretty obvious this wasn't an elaborate plan. So I like what M. Chaka said here, before I even read the rest. I like what M. Chaka said here. I like the word he used here, elaborate plan. Right? Like to say, a dude didn't sit down and say, okay, we're going to release this virus, and through releasing this virus and locking down everything, we're going to kill small business and have a huge transfer of wealth during that time. Right? That's an elaborate plan. What I would believe M. Chaka would probably agree with when I said that, you know, folks struck while the iron was hot. Once the pandemic occurred, it was an opportunity, and then that plan to kill small business, etc., probably was undertaken. Dorico Cooper says to M. Chaka, look up USA MRIID. So that's something you guys listening can look up too. Chaka says to Dorico Cooper Photography, look outside. Dorico Cooper Photography says, look up Plum Island. Look up Lab 257. Read the book Vaccine A. So, you guys listening to the show, pay attention to what Dorico Cooper Photography just put out there. I mean, even if you don't agree, right, it's worth looking up. I mean, knowledge is awesome. Knowledge is power. Look it up, right? Kevin Care42 says, I just started to reconnect with all the black-owned media companies. We have to build up more and more of the new black media. I agree with that. Dorico Cooper says to look deep at M. Chaka. Black Excellence says that COVID passport they're proposing will backfire. The majority of people do not want the jab. Once those businesses start losing money, they're going to have to reconsider. Right? M. Chaka is coming back. He says, if you know basic biology, you know that this wasn't a planned attack. The virus will do what it wants to do to survive, especially a novel virus at that. M. Chaka says, I agree, when there's fear, people will capitalize on that fear. Absolutely. Absolutely. Dorico Cooper Photography says, we have facilities 12 stories underground where we store virus. We have stuff that would make COVID-19 look like a preschool bow tie party. Again, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever, man. And even if that let's say that information is false, right? You or our people should still be thinking about carrying out that plan that you just described themselves. But I just don't think we at this point have the heart anymore to do what needs to be done. right? Dorico Cooper Photography says, I guess to Chaka, how do you know it is a novel virus? Any other topics you guys want to discuss? We'll carry on that conversation in the chat room as well. So any other topic that you'd like to discuss? Have you guys caught up with the Makia Bryant story? Is there any new development in the Makia Bryant story? Right? Is there any other story that stands out to you in our black world that's worth discussing? Remember, we just shooting the breeze tonight, so you know, I'm not here to do a lot of talking except to have a conversation with you guys. Right? What else is going on out there? Right? I see that we lost another hip hop legend, I guess. Right? Shock G passed away. I haven't heard a cause of death. I do think I remember hearing something about liver or something like that. I'm curious to know if there was a COVID jab, you know, involved. Oh, daily affirmation by Pauline says easier path to citizenship or residency for countries where the U.S. has cooperation. You want to talk about an easier path to citizenship or residency for countries where the U.S. has cooperation. Let me tell you all something. The U.S. is going to allow people citizenship or residency on a couple of bases. You have to really be bringing something to the table for the most part, right? You're going to be bringing something to the table, or you're absolutely not bringing anything to the table, and you'll just be one of the worker drones, right? Right? Either you're coming here to be a worker drone, or you're coming here to lead some shit for them to their advantage. And they will make the rules as easy or as hard depending on the season, depending on what their need is, supply and demand. They need more folks ASAP, you'll see they change up some stuff. And if they don't, if they're good for the next 20 years, they'll be tight on that stuff. And there's nothing much you could do about it. That's the thing, right? I see Dorico Cooper Photography says Russia versus Ukraine. I'm not sure what the Russia versus Ukraine comment was. Just let me know what that means. Chaka says because it was referring to the earlier conversation about the novelty of this COVID-19. Because it was the first time it was found in humans. Dorico Cooper Photography says there's 200 Chinese military ships off the coast of the Philippines. KW Don 7 says, I believe it was a plandemic, but I cannot prove it. Amos Wilson thought it is futile speculating on conspiracy theories. Once it is enacted, it's too late. The damage is already done. That's an interesting point by Amos Wilson as well, right? So we got KW Don and Dorico Cooper, who believes it was a plandemic. But I like KW Don's take is like, I can't prove it. And by the way, by the time they enacted it, it's too late to even worry about trying to prove it, right? Kevin Care 42 brings up an interesting topic. He says YouTube has been getting rid of a lot of black people off their platform. They have made their money and no longer need our services. Black people, know your worth and build your own. That's an interesting thing. You know, we've seen it here personally, as small as I am on my channel. We've seen them mess with the likes. We've seen them mess with the connection. And trust me, I have a wired connection. There's no reason for me to be dropping out. You know, they'll do stuff like that, and the country does stuff like that. So there's no. Once you understand that's what the people who run the country do, then don't be surprised, right? After Obama was halfway through his second term, a lot of those black folks start losing their jobs at CNN and whatnot. What's a smart little chick name again? Melissa Harris Perry and all them lost their job, right? And then when the Democrats were trying to get to win this last election, that's when you saw people like Joy Reid and them get a headline show, and Nina Turner and all those folks start making a little noise and stuff like that. You know, that's just what they do. There's a time that they'll use you for helping them build that wealth, and when it's done, they're done. They're done with you, right? China has 200 plus fighter jets flying over Taiwan. Russia has 150,000 troops at Ukraine border. I mean, haven't Russia and Ukraine been having this standoff? Like, I know someone who's Ukrainian, and I once mistakenly said she was Russian, and the hate that I got for that. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, do you believe Trump would run again in 2024, and will he have support from his party? I think Trump, if he's around, will make some noise. I don't think his party will support him that much. If they have a halfway decent person in mind, it can't be this Cuban fella cruising them. It can't be that. It can't be those guys. If they come up with a good candidate, they won't really back him. If they don't have anything better, they'll back him. Kevin Kerr says China and Russia are consolidating their territory and giving the United States a middle finger. They see Jim Crow Joe is weak. So let's talk about Biden and the Democrats. I'll be honest with you, I haven't paid them too much mind, to be honest. I tend to focus on the three things that I think are in my control, that I shared with you guys at the start of the year. I'm working on my health, wealth, and relationships, right? I'm particularly working on my wealth. So I haven't really been paying too much of attention to these guys. I'm also paying attention to what Bitcoin and what's the other coins I have? Dogecoin and other coin are doing. I'm looking at these ETFs. I'm trying to see, and Derico Cooper is pretty good at this stuff too. He give you some stock tips in the chat room. In the Discord, right? You guys should check out the Discord and check out the stuff that he's putting down. Derico Cooper says, read about the adjuvant squalene vaccines, the adjuvant squalene. Also in the chat room, KW7 says Trump said he will consider running again after the midterm elections. Because you know what happens in the midterm elections when Democrats are in power? They usually lose that first midterm election. It's like the folks who vote them in just said, "Well, fuck a midterm," and they don't vote again. They usually lose the midterm elections. Hoover Photography says JB, Joe Biden, is weak and elderly in the eyes of the world. So is there any examples? Again, I'm not paying attention to Joe Biden and them too much. Is there any examples of something that recently happened that shows that people see him as weak and elderly? Is there any solid examples of that? Right? And back to Kevin Kerr's statement, China and Russia are consolidating their territory and giving the United States a middle finger. They see Jim Crow Joe is weak. So share with us, what's the reason for China and Russia to be consolidating territory? Right? Let us know what that's about. As a matter of fact, let me do a quick station ID break, and I'll be back on the other side. Let's chop it up some more. Right now, we're talking about the vaccines. We're talking about health in terms of what you got to do to prepare the body to repel these diseases. I already dealt with Oni Tase with the dating advice during the pandemic. And now we're talking about consolidating power and Jim Crow Joe Biden. I'll be back on the other side.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is DAX. You tune into the Harsh Reality Podcast, providing you with social commentary on the news affecting our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Also, make sure to check out the Queen's Council podcast, also on KWAZ Radio. I've been thinking about making this image on the screen, the Shoot the Breeze image. I've been thinking about making it a t-shirt. You guys let me know if that's a good idea. If you think that's a good idea, making this image, Shoot the Breeze, a t-shirt. Do you think that's something that folks would care about? KW7 is saying some stuff, but hold on, let me go back a little bit more. Kevin Kerr 42 says Russia blocked some ports and told the United States to practically F off. Okay. Derico Cooper Photography says the Ooish, you guys know who the Ooish are, refer to him as Sleepy Joe. KW7 says Joe Biden couldn't make it up the stairs to Air Force One. He stumbled 3 times. God damn. And that's not a good look in a leader. But you know, Joe Brown, I was talking to him on Twitter one day, and he was telling me, this is a while ago he told me this too. This is before they won the election. He said the plan is that by the midterms, Joe, if he ain't dead by then, he'll have to step down, and Kamala Harris will be have to take his place. All right. So let's see how that plays out. China, Derico Cooper Photography says China sees itself as equal or greater to the U.S. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says at one point Kim Jong-un was always in the news. I don't know what is going on with North Korea since we don't hear much. Are they a real threat to the West? They are a real threat to the West. It's a mindset. They have a certain mindset. Almost everyone has a sovereign mindset, you know. It's only our folks who don't have that sovereign mindset. Everyone else has a sovereign mindset. I think the thing with Kim Jong-un was he was really sick at one point. I think he survived it. I think he did, because the rumors started to come out that he had died. And I think he survived whatever was going on. I think he did make a public appearance, right? Kevin Carefoy too says China has been telling the United States to mind its business while it built an artificial island in the South China Sea. That area is also an important trade route. Interesting. Daily Affirmations actually answered my question. I appreciate Daily Affirmations by Paulie, and she said yes, a good idea for a t-shirt. All right, thank you for listening and actually giving a response. I appreciate that. Dorico Cooper Photography says Russia dares the US to get involved by trying to protect the Ukraine. Yeah, you know, we read about the Monroe Doctrine, right, as it applies to Haiti, but really also as it applies to the world, not just Haiti or the Western Hemisphere, but really as it applies to the world. And you know, when you draw that line to Europe and say, hey, I dare to cross that line, right? Remember, Europe has some heart too. And they're going to remember that and tell you, don't you cross our line now, right? China, Dorico Cooper Photography says China dares the U.S. to protect Taiwan. Huh. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says tonight's episode reminds me of talking to the guys on the blocks. A lot of wisdom being infused into us. I appreciate that. Talking on the blocks. Anyone who knows me in real life knows that's my get down. Hang out on the blocks and talk. Right. Crazy question. Since Daily Affirmations by Pauline brought that up, it brings back some memories there too. I still hang out on the block here in New York, because New York is, you know, there's so many Caribbean folks, the Caribbean culture is alive in New York. So there's blocks in New York even, right? When the weather is good, men's is on the block, right? What about the rest of you guys? I know Dorico Cooper is in like Flint, Michigan. I know KW Dawn 7 is in old Canada there. Do you guys have blocks where you guys hang out, where the fellas just really sit down, or is it just or is it the barber shop that's the block? Because to me, I think the barber shop in America is the blocks that we kind of talk about in the Caribbean. What else is going on here? Black Excellence says, I was speaking to some, I guess, OG yesterday, and the conversation comes to Andrew Yang. The OG thinks Yang works for the CCP. Right? I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I've never considered that before, but I wouldn't be surprised. Dorico Cooper Photography says, I have no issues with female heads of state. However, Kamala is no Nzinga. She's not commander-in-chief material. As for the t-shirt, if you create it, I will rock it. KW Don 7 says the barbershops. That's what I thought. The barbershops is the place here. And you know, I don't have need to go to the barbershop, right? And so I guess that's where I would go if I wanted to catch up with some folks, not of the Caribbean culture, but folks here who were chopping it up. So yeah, that's what I thought, you know. That's why when who was it? Was it LeBron who came out with the show the barber shop or something like that, or shop, like a podcast. Like when that came out, I was like, oh man, that's a great name for a podcast, because that's like the kind of the idea I want, like this night right now, to Shoot the Breeze night, which is going well, by the way. This Shoot the Breeze night is going pretty well. I think this might be the new Saturday move. Make sure you guys prepare your topics during the week and throw them out there. Even if you want to DM me during the week, the topics, this way I could look into it a little bit more, in case I'm not familiar with it. Right? You know, so let's try to do this again next week and see if we could really make it pumping next week too. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, many people in South Florida hang out on the blocks, outside, convenience stores, the parks, and all over. Many love to talk about current events. That's good. That's good to see. But Florida also has a Caribbean culture too. Let's be real. So I'm not surprised by it. I'm not surprised by it much. All right. So earlier, Rico Cooper was saying, look up squalene-based adjuvants in vaccines. So squalene is a naturally occurring substance found in plants, animals, and humans. It's manufactured in the liver of every human body and circulates in our bloodstream. Squalene is also found in a variety of foods, cosmetics, over-the-counter medications, and health supplements. Squalene is commercially extracted from fish oil, and in particular shark liver oil. Squalene used in pharmaceutical products and vaccines is purified from this source. So there's a question, is there squalene in vaccines? Since 1997, an influenza vaccine, which contains about 10 milligrams of squalene per dose, has been approved in health agencies in several European countries. Squalene is present in the form of an emulsion and is made to make the vaccine more immunogenic. So it's made, I mean, it makes sense. It comes from a shark. Our body is going to recognize it as foreign, right? Because it doesn't have the right proteins on its exterior. Our body's going to tag it with a marker, a marker, and then the body will recognize that marker and get rid of it, right? So that part makes sense so far, right? A lot of the antibodies that we get infused with, let's say you go to the hospital and they have to put you on a drip, like an antibody drip or something like that. They'll get those antibodies from like a rabbit or something like that, right? Why is squalene added to vaccines? Squalene is a component of some adjuvants. Wait, hold on, did I skip something? Yeah. To some adjuvants is added to to enhance an immune response. Squalene by itself is not an adjuvant, but emulsions of squalene with surfactants do enhance the immune response. So let me pause and go back and check in with Dorico. Okay, so yeah, that's what I thought. Dorico Cooper Photography says squalene causes autoimmune diseases when injected. So that's the thing. The thing is, you know, and this is why there's a problem with science. Science is great for commerce, no doubt. But when the science isn't allowed to be tested, right? Or when the science is allowed to have casualties or what have you, right? Once it's under a certain percent, then you'll have instances like these. The science is not a bad science, right? You take it from a shark or whatever, right? You're not taking it from human livers, you're taking it from a shark's liver. right? Because it's foreign to the human body, and an immune response will be mounted. But by the time they add this to all this other surfactant stuff, you know, things to bind it and all that kind of stuff, you know, you could have something where you have the immune system working overtime, like you know, overworking, and now you get to a, you know, an autoimmune response, a disease response. You know, that can happen, and largely that happens because the companies that are trying to make money off of this work that they're doing, they're going to push it out there, and if the oversight board allows for a certain amount of casualties, right? Like, I'm not sure what the percent is, but let's say the percent is, you know, don't exceed 5%, right? Like the water systems, there's pollutants in your water up to 5%. And after 5, if it goes beyond 5%, then they'll start doing something, you know, try shutting down the water and try to figure out what it is that's going on, where's it coming from. You know, usually it's from some waste products from an animal farm or something like that, right? But that's just how science is. Science allows for a certain amount of casualties, and because it's based in capital or capitalism, you know, these folks are able to do quick work and put it out there, which goes to Daily Affirmations by Pauline questions. Anyone afraid of the side effects of the second COVID shot? Well, personally, I haven't had the first one. I'm worried about the first one, right? You know, yeah, Derigo Cooper Photography says you would have been scared of the first vaccine, right? Derigo Cooper also says research was in the average vaccine. Aborted babies is one of the ingredients. Yeah, oftentimes the remains of aborted babies, those young red blood cells, are used in different things. I think cosmetics and stuff often or sometimes have maybe not often, but sometimes have you know, these aborted babies parts in them, right? So that you know, this, you know, from what I was just talking about, should lead to a natural conversation of, you know, what are your guys' general feelings about science when it comes to healing? You know, science in the form of vaccines. Like, are you guys anti-vax? Right? Are you guys anti-vax folks? In general, you know, I don't have a problem with the science. I really don't have a problem with vaccines per se. Rigo Cooper Photography says hashtag home birth. So that tells you all you need to know right there. You know, for him. But where my problems with science come in is that because it's about getting a product out, and because I know that, you know, there's a certain amount of wiggle room they have where people could actually die from this stuff, they just push this stuff out. You know, it's kind of like Windows or PC, or, you know, Windows PCs, right? Like, they push this shit out, Windows 10 or whatever. They push this out and they know this shit is garbage. This is why you always have to update your computer and all that stuff. They know that there's so much loopholes and problem points, right? But as they're sending this out to make more money off people buying newer computers or what have you, you know, they got people working busily to try to fix some of these problems, but they're still going to put it out. And that's just what it is. Dorigo Cooper says medical apartheid, anti-vax. Yeah, I feel you on that too. Again, you know, I know the story, and there's the book right there, Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. I know I have it on a PDF. I'll put it in the, if I'm reminded, I'll put it in the Discord, right? But absolutely, I definitely know what medicine has done, what they've done with medicine. But again, that's a part of the power thing. They have the power to do that to you. Wherever this medical apartheid was happening, they had that power to do it to you. Your job is to get the power where they cannot do it to you. And one of the ways would be our people doing this work. And doing this work with our people in mind too, by the way. You know, that's really what's missing. Right? We need the people doing the work. If our people are doing the work with our resources, then we would trust the process. That's why when they were talking about vaccines coming out, they got these two black women, two doctors, right? And they were like the face of this thing for a minute, and then one of them disappeared because Miki or whatever her name was, she just disappeared. I actually tried to get her on the show. And they kind of someone pulled up some receipts on her. I guess she was anti-black male or something. And, you know, after that, I guess they figured, well, we can't use her no more. And she was gone out of there. Make sure you guys hit the like button if you're here tonight. If you're here tonight listening to me, make sure you hit the like button. Dorigo Cooper Photography. It seems like it's only me and him on this episode for the last 10 minutes or so. He says, don't cut the cord, let your child get the extra liter of blood and all them stem cells from the placenta. You know, that reminds me, my firstborn kid will be 16 tomorrow. And I remember as new parents, you know how new parents are reading everything and looking up this thing and the next, and I remember his mom had found this company that would store the placenta and that placental blood, and you know, I gotta inquire whatever happened with that, because if anything happened, you could draw those stem cells, right, to use in personalized medicine, therapeutic medicine, to heal people. And so somewhere there's his placenta stored away in a freezer somewhere, right? Dorico Cooper Photography says if you don't do what he said before, which is don't cut the cord, let your child get that extra liter of blood and all them stem cells from the placenta. He says, if you don't, they will sell your placenta to Urugu. They won't tell you about it and pay you no attention. You know, that's familiar with the Henrietta Lacks story. You know, her cells, because there was something interesting about her cancer cells, they were, you know, basically immortal. They took her cells and were using them. They actually call them the Hella for Henrietta, H-E, Lacks, L-A, right? You know, and these are cells I used to work with in undergrad at one time. And they were using these cells, sending them all about to Johns Hopkins. Where was she from? Was she from the South or was she from Baltimore? Was she from somewhere down in Alabama, or was she, you know, was she from Baltimore? I forgot now, but I know Johns Hopkins and them had made bank off of that. They were like, they had like some like proprietary thing on her cells. And the family, you know, Henrietta Lacks and them came from, you know, kind of a struggling family or whatever. Family knew nothing of it, wasn't compensated whatsoever for it, right? I think I missed a question. Yeah, Kevin Care42 earlier asks, do you think the Democratic Party is dead with the situation at the border and also the Asians getting their own crime bill. Do I think the Democratic Party is dead? No. No. Because, honestly, the Republicans never learned to play the game. And in fact, it's not that they never learned. They never cared to play the game. Right? They never cared to. So Kevin K42 says Henrietta Lacks was from Baltimore. Right. I figured it was Baltimore because that's where Johns Hopkins is. You know, some have said that it was her who really built. It was her and her cells that really built Johns Hopkins. That really made it big, I should say. Right? But I think the Democrats will be just fine. Black folks are tied in with them now. As others, like the pro-black perspective, would argue, black folks do better on the Democrats anyway. Right? Black folks do better on the Democrats anyway. I could tell you science does better on the Democrats anyway. Right? You want to see a bunch of NIH funded scientists get worried? Let the Republicans win the election. Right? So much shit gets cut down. So the Democrats will always have a chance. But I will say, the Democrats have to get off this idea of the person on the other side of the aisle who's so bad that we have to get them out of there. They're gonna have to get off of that real soon. As KW Don 7 says, Kamala Harris cannot win an election on her own. I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, if they come with that bullshit, well, you gotta get Harris because you don't want, you know, let's say Trump comes back or whatever. You don't want him for another 4 years or what have you, right? And the fair tactics that's used, the silly fair tactics that's used, black folks will be voting for Kamala because they don't want to see Trump back in. And black folks are really the big swing vote. When black folks come out in mass and vote, they're the swing vote. Not the Asians like what Andrew Yang was trying to say the Asians won. And see, that was the setup right there. When Yang said the Asians won the election for the Democrats, everybody was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Asians barely vote. Furthermore, they're not here in numbers that are great enough to really swing elections like that. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says, I don't think the Democratic Party is dead either. All right. Kevin K42 says, Asians and Hispanics vote mostly Republican. That's true. Dorigo Cooper in photography shed some light on something interesting. He says the old heads used to say never hang around Johns Hopkins after dark or the body snatchers will get you. That stuff doesn't come from nowhere. Things happen. You know what I mean? Kevin K42 says Henrietta Lacks was getting treatment for, I think, uterine cancer. Yeah, it was uterine cancer she had. All right. And from my understanding, you know, a modest institution at the time blew up after dealing with Henrietta Lacks. Right? As we were talking about voting just now, the question came to mind: how should black folks as a group go about voting? Let me ask you guys that. How should black folks as a group go about with voting. And if you feel black folks shouldn't vote, just say, don't vote. Oh yeah, I saw that. KW7 says Tom Cotton has presidential ambitions. He recently said that the USA is under incarcerated. Laughing my ass off. I did happen to see that. Kevin K42 says it shows you the black spirit is filled with abundance. They see it, but we do not. We talking about Henrietta Lax's cancer cells that were immortal and being used to this day, being shipped across the world, actually, not just the US. Folks in Britain and stuff get those too, right? Those cells are used across the world, right, for folks to do research with. As a matter of fact, I remember reading this research proposal. I was on this board at one time for research, and there was a proposal and a big conversation. It wasn't about what work was going to be done so much as where are they getting these hella cells from. Dorico Cooper photography says melanin is worth 511 a gram. Yeah, melanin was worth more than gold, man. Kevin K42 says we should vote when things are done specific to us first and consistently. When we get what is specific and timely, then we should vote. This will always be transactional. Dorico Cooper photography says we need to vote as a block. You do something for black folks, you get the entire black vote. Here's a question to that. I understand that. I've heard that put out there a lot. But the question is this. A candidate who's looking for this black vote from the block, right, is going to agree to, for the as much as they feel this society will allow them to, right, they're going to agree to do it, for example, right? But what if they get in there and don't do a damn thing that they promised to do? What then? What if they get in there and they don't do anything that they promised to do, which is highly possible? What systems do we have to back up our vote when these guys don't come through what they are going to come through? And I know, one tactic is, well, the next election we won't vote for them again. But that's that could be a bit of a fool's errand right there. In that, you gave them the momentum already. You put them in power. And again, I always talk about it, and folks don't like to hear it. But a lot of these folks, when you vote them in power, really and truly, you're giving them a vote to give them a chance to make their money, to make their bread, to be honest. So Kevin Kerr says to me, they have to give us the tangibles first, before the vote. Their credit is bad now, right? Dorico Cooper photography says, yes, we need leverage. Earlier, Kevin Kerr said, no more voting out of fear because grandma did, and shame tactics. He agrees with Dorico Cooper photography. Okay, so when do you start demanding what it is you want? And let's remember that we don't know the next candidate until just, a few months before the election, not years, but months. So when do you start pushing it? And by the way, why aren't folks doing this work now? Because for me, I never understood, like, you're talking about reparations, for example. If you want to carry out that fool's journey, well, go ahead and do it. But Why aren't you talking as much about reparations now? And I'm talking politically, not just running your mouth, right? But why not be doing that work now, right? Because you're not doing that work right now, you're giving the Democratic Party an out, or you know, even the Republican Party. Like right now is when you should be your loudest, right? From when Kamala Harris talked about, I ain't gonna do anything for the black community only. No, like from right there should have been a switch in tactics. And I mean loud, verbal, obvious. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says, wonder why they are so Derico Cooper photography. Is that why so many black girls are missing nowadays? Just a strange situation. Derico Cooper photography says, we need a secured loan, so to speak. So I want you to talk more about that secured loan. Are you saying we need that in lieu of reparations, right? Derico Cooper photography says 64,000 plus missing and not even a word about them. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says to Derico Cooper, it bothers me so much that this is happening at such alarming rates. Kevin Care 42 says the time is now. It is always now. Yeah, the time is always now. If you whatever you're talking about, starting a business, buying a house, getting debt free, whatever it is, investing, the time is always now. We're not promised tomorrow. The time is now. Kevin Care says to Derico Cooper and Daily Affirmations, I hate to say it, organ harvesting. Yeah, that's what's going on. I mean, these folks aren't missing. All of them ain't skeezers. Let's just be real, right? All of them ain't out here hoeing. Some of these folks are gone. You know, straight up and down, just gone. Kevin Care says there was a college girl missing in, I think, Alabama. Her body was found in a river. Really sad. Yeah, it's always happening. I think I know what you're talking about too, right? It's always happening. Derico says Democrats' credit is bad. You can't get credit from black folks. We need tangible results. But again, all that is well and good, but folks gotta get to work now. The time is always now. Next time someone asks you time, just tell them it's now, right? What's going on? All that shit talking that folks was doing on social media about Caribbeans and Africans and all that shit. What did that really pan out to do? That did nothing. It did nothing. Black folks still went out in huge numbers and voted Democrat. Because they were worried about Trump. I think we talked about this in recent days. Under Trump, I didn't hear about all these black folks getting killed by the cops. I'm not saying it wasn't happening. I mean, I know there was a few big things that did happen, right? I didn't hear all this killing of black folks, and I think we talked about it in the chat room, and folks agreed. You didn't hear about it like that. But under the Democrats, immediately, there's a bunch of bullshit going on. Kevin Care 42 says the day Michael Jackson died, there was a big expose on the ooish harvesting organs. You know, I saw an article, I don't know if it was on the Discord or elsewhere. I think it was on the Discord some weeks ago. I meant to mention it before, but you know, they catch these Asians the other day with a shipload of, I want to say, Nigerian dicks in a ship in one of these Asian countries. I'm like, and by the way, this was during the height of the Stop Anti-Asian Hate. But my question is, what you doing with all them black dicks on a ship? In fact, I don't really want to know, but I need to know. What the hell are y'all doing? Right? Where are these black men after you've separated them from their member? Kevin Kerr says the Democrats always have a boogeyman, kind of like a carrot on a stick in front of a mule. Dorico Cooper Photography says, get that organ donor off your license now. Yeah, that's been the word. I think it was Dick Gregory who talked about that when you have that on your license and they see it, they have no legal obligation really to save you, right? You could have been in a car accident, but you're savable. And you know, because there's a market out here for certain organs. You see some of these white folks live to be 100 and some, looking like they died 50 years ago, right? And yeah, so it's interesting, but I see that Daily Affirmation by Pauline asks, what, in a ship? Yeah, from what I read, it was a shipload, just a gang of black dicks in a ship. KW Don 7 says he heard that story was satire. Okay, that's possible. I hope it is. But again, where are you getting all these black men from? And what are you doing with them after you detached them? Dorito Cooper Photography says organ donor means take my body to the chop shop. I get you. Dorito Cooper Photography makes a good point here. He says it's like that JP Morgan Chase ship that had a cocaine shipment that got seized. Whatever became of that? Whatever became of that? Wasn't that ship linked to someone like your boy? What's your boy? What's his name? The guy from Kentucky. The white boy who made it his bread and butter to block anything Obama even talked about doing. What's his name? Graham, right? I think that JP Morgan ship was connected to him too, I believe. Right? Nothing came of that, from what I could remember. Right? But yeah, that was the whole idea with the organ donor thing. I think that was Dick Gregory who used to talk about that. And said if you have that on there, you're setting yourself up to be murked. Right? See, we don't have any more comments, so I might as well wrap this up now. But this was pretty decent. This was decent. If you guys want to, oh yeah, McConnell. Yeah, KW Don 7's right. Mitch McConnell. That's right. Mitch McConnell. I said Graham, not Lindsey Graham. Mitch McConnell. That's right. Rodrigo Cooper Vittori says money. Shh. Stop talking about my cocaine in the news. More money. All right, that's what they did. They paid that one off. All right. So yeah. So I think we covered all the topics you guys had. Let's do this again next week, Saturday. Again, I'll be on again on Tuesday and Thursday as usual. But next week, Saturday, let's do another Shoot the Breeze. Let's see if we can make this a thing. You guys come with your topics in the chat room. You can start posting your topics early. And what I'll do is I'll come in, we'll talk about topics. If I don't know it, I'll look it up, read about it, and then we'll have a conversation back and forth. And like I said, and I'll do this again next week as well, I have the chat room open up. I'm in there. Sorry, not chat room. The live show channel is open on the Discord. I'm in there now. Folks should be able to hear me if they went in there as well. If you guys want to hop on the broadcast and discuss a certain topic real quick and hop off, we can do that as well in the future. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says to Derico Cooper, I will never indicate that I will donate my organs on my license because they would kill me for my organs. Yeah, that's a wise choice, as Derico Cooper just said. I remember when I heard that many moons ago now, like 20 years, or probably a little more than 20 years ago now. When I heard that, because at first I think I would be a donor. And after I heard that and I thought it through, I was like, nah, I'm taking that off. I think maybe have been Kevin Care42 told me how difficult it is now to get that donorship thing off your license. Is that true for you guys in other states or other countries? Is it difficult to take that donor tag off of your license? Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, love this format for Saturdays. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with it on Saturdays. It's lighter. I don't have to do all the reading and find a topic.
You gotta have
is there someone here with me in the Discord? Look like it's General Abzu. General Abzu, are you there? General Abzu is on air, I think, but I don't hear him. Are you there? Or no?
Yeah. General Abzu.
Okay, sounds like Derico Cooper's saying yes, it's very difficult.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So, very difficult. And so you got to keep that kind of stuff in mind. Derico, is there any...
I'm here, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm here. You should be able to hear me here in the room as well. But if Derico Cooper has something to say on air, just go ahead and say it, brother, and they should be able to pick it up. You guys can hear. Can you guys hear Derico?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I know you could hear me. Hold on, let me make sure. Let me make sure this thing is set up. It's always a pain, because my settings don't stay the same.
It's very difficult to get an appointment.
Oh, it's
and the appointments are scheduled months out. Like, to get an appointment at the DMV is like 3-4 months out.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think you guys were able to hear what Derico Cooper just said, right? It takes months out to do it, and Daily Affirmations by Pauline said yes. So I guess in Florida, it's pretty difficult to do. Okay, so that's something that you guys could take away from today's episode. Dorico, do you have any investment tips for us today? Again, we'll do this again next week. You guys post your comments.
There's a long delay. The delay is almost a minute or more.
Okay. All right. Dorico is just telling me there's a long delay. It's all good. We're going to end it here. I didn't set it up properly, I guess. I'll set it up next week for folks to jump on the live. We'll end here tonight. I just want to thank Daily Affirmations by Pauline, Dorico Cooper Photography. Who else was here? KW Don 7, Kevin Care 42. Who else? I know earlier we had the Pro Black Perspective was in here. I think I mentioned KW Don 7. NYC Beauties was here. NYC Sports Archives was here as well. Right. Thank all you guys for tuning in today. Next week I'll have it real proper, where you could hear everything. Life with Nelly is here as well, actually. Good night to you. So we're going to be able to have folks on. Coach Pete is here as well. Okay. Coach Pete says, I love this episode. Great. Thanks for being here, Coach Pete. So we'll do it again next week. It's about 1 hour and 40 minutes we've been on. We'll do it again. We'll try to keep it to 1 hour 30 next week. When we do this, Dorico Cooper Photography says Bitcoin is on sale. Absolutely. Bitcoin had been up to 65,000 a coin. So that means if you didn't have paper, you can't just jump in and own full coins, plural, of Bitcoin, right? But you can buy partial coins. And because Bitcoin, because Bitcoin had this drop recently, and I think they attribute that to Joe Biden. Because it dropped recently to about 59, was it? Right, well, how much did it drop? 50, 59? What did Dorico just say? I can't remember right now. I probably could look it up. But Bitcoin dropped a bit, and I bought a few more decimals of Bitcoin recently because it dropped. Bitcoin right now is at why am I not finding it? You guys might beat me to it at this point. But Bitcoin is right now at 53,000. Again, it was 65. Dorico Cooper says 47,000-ish. Right now, live looking at it, average cost 53,000 and change. Right? So right now is a chance for you to buy, if you have the paper like that, it could drop 53,000 for a coin. If not, you could drop 53 bucks, for a percentage bit of paper, coin. So, you could do that. He says it's 50,100 right now. Yeah, Dorico Cooper gave the rate. So yeah, so with this, so-called discount, you could buy in a little bit more now, right? And if it goes back to where it was and beyond, which some people think is gonna go all the way to like 200,000 at some point, you could get in right now on it, right? Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again next week to shoot the breeze. We're gonna call it that for now. The Saturday Shoot the Breeze episodes. We'll continue it if it's still active, and lively. In the coming weeks, we'll keep doing it. All right, thanks everyone for being here. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.